Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar where we're going to hear a mix of behind the scenes stories and actionable lessons for your influencer marketing program from brands such as Gymshark and Elemis. Now, before we get into it, firstly, I'm very curious, where is everyone from? If you just pop it in the chat, let's have a little look. Alberta, Canada, hello. Portugal, going there next week. I hope it's lovely and hot there. A few from London. I'm near London. I'm based just near London, near Bath area. Nottingham, more London. Philadelphia. Oh, there's loads. Okay. Athens, Greece. Hello, Eleni. Nashville, Tennessee. Amazing. Okay, next. What was a product you bought online that you were influenced to buy? So, for example, for me, I recently bought this stain remover pen because my sister was getting married and I thought that could be super useful for the morning of her wedding. So, let me know in the chat, what was the last thing you were influenced to buy? I love stuff like this. Like, there's some random stuff I've bought from like TikTok on Marketplace. Gymshark stuff. Love Gymshark. Well, we're hearing from Chloe later, who worked at Gymshark. Oh, chairs, office chairs, lots of skincare. I'm loving the Korean skincare at the moment. Rocks, what kind of rocks? Mystery bags, those look incredible. Tala loungewear is the time of year for loungewear. Great, okay, right. Now, we did mention Chloe earlier, but today's guest speaker is ex-Gymshark influencer marketer Chloe Perkins, who'll be sharing her insights on how to make the most of Q4 and how to stay organized at one of the busiest times of years. Now, whilst I may wait for others to join, I personally love a poll, so let's get the first one up. So, poll number 1, how prepared do you feel for the chaos of Q4 campaigns? Perhaps you are fully prepared and you are confident. Maybe you've got the basics covered. You might be still working out the details. Maybe you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, or you might not be running any Q4 campaigns. I'm very interested to see where you're at. Okay, so we've got a few of you feeling overwhelmed. I mean, it is chaotic. Okay, whilst you guys go ahead and answer, I'm going to do a little introduction on myself. So, hello, my name is Simone, and I am a content producer and influencer marketing expert here at Modash. Now, from 2012 to 2022, I actually worked as a professional influencer, working with brands such as Amazon, Look Fantastic, The Body Shop, racking up over 41 million views on YouTube alone. However, when I was head of influencer at a busy UK agency, working with creators during Q4 was absolutely hectic. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from Chloe in today's session. Okay, let's reveal the results from poll number 1. Okay, a lot of you are still working out the details. And next, everyone is feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Don't worry, you are not alone in that. Okay, so by the end of this roundtable, you have learned how to identify revenue-driving creators, how to streamline high-volume content workflows, simplifying code tracking, and you're going to learn how to ride the wave of key events like Black Friday. And the agenda will be super simple. We're going to hear from Chloe and the lessons gained from working for top brands such as Gymshark and Elemis during Q4. And then we're going to hold a little Q&A and discussion. So if you've got any questions, please do ask in the chat just here. We will be bringing them up towards the end of this session. Now, Chloe, you have worked Q4 at some of the busiest brands on the planet, and I cannot wait to hear some of your stories and how you've managed to stay sane throughout this busy time. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Simone. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with Modash. I am so happy that you can make it and that you're choosing to spend your Thursday with us. As Simone mentioned, I'll be diving into all things influence marketing for Q4, lessons to learnings, so you can head into this quarter with all the confidence and clarity that you need, especially for those of you feeling overwhelmed. So a bit more of a formal introduction. Hello, I'm Chloe. I'm a freelancer and consultant in influence marketing and the creator economy. I strategize, craft, and deliver all types of influencer campaigns from concept to execution, as well as jumping in at any stage. I've worked on a whole host of campaigns and creatives, literally anything you can think of, from a 1K following to 10 million, from fashion and beauty to super niches like books and pets. Some of my personal highlights in my career include working for 3 years at Gymshark in-house, which is where I got so much of my Q4 experience, strategizing reactive content for Prada Beauty's campaign with Sabrina Carpenter and Valentino Beauty's campaign with Charlie XCX, which was super fun, and leading the influencer team in-house at Elemis during their peak period as well. So I've worked in influence marketing for a while now. This is my 7th Q4, so I am very tired. But luckily, with that comes knowledge, which I will now be giving to you. So, class in session, we're going to be talking through 3 of the biggest challenges during Q4 and how you can overcome them, with some tips and tricks. These are all applicable to brands and campaigns of any size. So no matter what kind of size or stage your influence marketing program is at, there's learnings for you too. So as you know, Black Friday and Cyber Monday is mostly about revenue, and with that comes influencer codes. It is often the busiest time of year, the biggest pressure, which I know I have experienced, and I'm sure a lot of you are experiencing now, hence the overwhelmed feeling. When I was at Gymshark, it was actually one of their only sales of the year. So items would sell out within minutes. So there was a lot of pressure around the timeliness and clarity around codes and links, just to make sure everything was all good for that go live time. And similarly, it was really imperative that we had regular updates for the business on how the influence marketing program was performing in terms of sessions, revenue, pieces of content live, and views and stuff. We had to update literally like 2 to 3 times a day. So we needed up-to-date figures as well. So this leads on to 2 questions, which I'm going to answer in the first portion. Is firstly, how do you maintain code efficiency while also ensuring clarity for all creators, talent managers, the audience, and your team? And secondly, how do you track revenue and ensure that you have the most up-to-date figures to meet the demands of leadership as well? And the answer is 1 key message, 1 memorable code, and individualized tracking links. And you might be thinking, okay, but what does this actually mean? What does this actually look like? So this could be 1 kind of flat key message, such as whatever the business need is. So such as 30% off with code X. Then code X can look like Chloe P, and then individual tracking links to each product or page the influencer will be talking about. And then these individual links will be used in the link in bio, Instagram stories, and YouTube descriptions. The reason this is such a key learning is because one Black Friday I've experienced, we had like quite a nightmare with the link situation, and the messaging switched halfway through kind of Black Friday weekend. So it changed from the influencer code being an extra 10% off to free shipping. So not only did we have to log on the weekend, we had to change the codes in the back end and internally communicate with the talent managers and the influencers this change as well. It was really confusing. We had to do it for over 100 influencers, and it was very stressful. So big learning there in just simplifying that messaging, not only for your audience, but just for clarity with everyone. As I mentioned, super busy time of year for literally everyone. It's marketers' busiest time of year, talent agents, influencers. The less messy and confusing you can make the messaging and the code, the better everyone's life is and your life is. And on that, using 1 code will actually also increase the likelihood of organic posting, especially if you offer commission. So at both Elemis and Gymshark, we offered commission to creators. So having kind of like 1 neat and simple code meant it was really easy and efficient for them to just go ahead, post organically on their own merit as well, which is a win-win for everyone. The third point is using their name or use it as a code. And it may be obvious, but a lot of brands don't do it, is asking the influencer what they actually want the code to be. When I was speaking to Simone, she said this was so annoying for her as well, when she was a full-time content creator, because a lot of influencers use the same kind of code, like I said, Chloe P, across multiple brands. So not only is it easier for them to communicate, but it's easier for the audience to remember. And then on that note, do not change the code halfway through Q4 or your campaign. Don't suddenly change it to Chloe P extra 10, Chloe P free ship. Just change the code in the back end. Again, simplicity is key. Because savvy consumers like myself, in Black Friday, a lot of the time, if you know the product isn't going to sell out, you're going to wait, especially if you've got different retailers, you're going to wait to see who has the best offer before making their decision and purchase. So if you keep it simple, it's easier for them to remember and come back to it at a later date. And my final tip, just at the bottom there in pink, is even if you track revenue through codes, still use trackable links. You want to know the sessions. An influencer may not drive a ton of revenue, but they might drive a ton of traffic. And that's a really great learning for you to try and figure out and decipher. Is it because the price point is wrong for the audience? Or is it because the audience may need some more touch points, and actually further influencer partnerships with that creator may work as well? And something I've already touched on and Simone mentioned at the beginning for the second lesson is that this is an extremely busy time of year, and the busiest and biggest usually campaign spend of the year. So it's a lot of pressure to kind of manage the amount of content and the amount of work that you have to do during that time. So what's the smartest and most efficient way to run a large scale influencer campaign, or small scale for those small businesses? And how do you ensure influencers post on deadline to ensure the deal and duration is as maximized as it can be? And not so spoiler alert, it is literally all in your internal process. Influence marketing, you are dealing with so many external factors, so many external peers. If you can just make sure that you are rock solid internally, across your team, across your process, it means that when you have all of these things going on that you can't control, at least you are sturdy. So as a seasoned influence marketer, veteran in Q4, these are my top tips that I will now be passing on to you. So the first is the best. Reduce that approval process. At Gymshark, if I managed a partnership 99.9% of the time, I would be the only person reviewing and approving that content. I know that comes with trust, but it made things super, super fast because it meant all I needed to do was be on top of my emails. I wasn't waiting on someone else to get back to me. At Elemis, there were two of us, and I understand that people are also agencies. So I would just have a transparent chat with the client around this time of year, and see if you can still try to reduce that to two people. Can you have one person at the agency and one person in-house as well, even if it's just a temporary fix? Like I said, the approval process is often sometimes the most time-consuming part of Q4. The second, something that can drastically help the approval process as well, is the brief. Keep it simple and flexible. 1 to 2 key messaging, something about the product, and then something about the deal. Stick to tried and tested formats, whether that's what works best for the influencer individually or for you as a brand. And again, if you're a smaller brand, this is a chance for you to do some kind of testing and learning, trying different content types and video styles to see what works best for you. But as a rule of thumb, follow what the influencer you're working with works best for them. So whether that's a get ready with me or a haul or a try on, you don't have to reinvent the wheel for Black Friday, which I know a lot of brands are trying to do. It is a time that's busy for everyone. So I understand how people need to kind of like cut through the noise, but that is best to think of more as like a general marketing activation, or trying to find a creator that is creative and doing something unique. Essentially just try to avoid having this vision in your head and putting a creator into a box that they don't already fit in, as influencers aren't just a vessel for your creative vision. They should be the starting point for your creative idea that your brand and product can then integrate within. We've got a few more that I'm just going to run through super quickly. Anything crucial to the content and partnership overall, highlight in the email as well as in the brief, because talent managers often don't read the brief. So if there's specific deadlines, specific brand guidelines, anything that is absolutely crucial, put it in the email as well as in the brief. Think of email is the talent manager brief, and the actual brief is the brief for the influencer. The fourth is to request content kind of 7 to 10 days ahead of go live, quite far in advance, but influencers do submit things late, as I'm sure many of you are aware. So just protect yourself in that situation. Calling out deadlines in email, as I mentioned, and setting them super clearly, but also requesting that acknowledgement. Again, sometimes a lot of the communications that can fall through the gaps is between the talent manager and the influencer. So if you're saying to them, can you send content for Thursday, the 18th of September, can you confirm that is okay with both of you, and request their acknowledgement as well. And also, that similar to that, proactively check in the day before the content is due, again, to stop things falling through the cracks between the talent manager and the creator. And finally, my favorite as a very type A person is also just a really, really, really great tracker. Again, having that kind of robust internal process that you and your team know how to use this tracker, know how to understand it, and make sure that everyone kind of prioritizes using it and updating it at least once a day. This is also really great because it's a really high pressure time, and a lot of people above you might be sending you Slack messages and asking you, what have you done so far? What else have you got left? We're needing to make this target. A tracker like that helps you to understand this quickly and easily without the need to chase loads of people as well. So essentially, anything that can help your efficiency and speed, do it. Modash has a really cool event tracking tool, which is an absolute godsend in any campaign, but especially in Q4. I've lost a lot of my life due to screenshotting and saving down content, and this tool just does it for you. It also allows you to analyze what content is performing best really quickly. So lots of fast reporting on things such as impressions and coverage as well. And then this is just a quick overview on how it works. So you create the campaign, add the creators, and then once you start posting, you'll have this dashboard, which is super amazing and incredible for a really quick snapshot of what you've done so far. As I've previously said, I've had to report on numbers 2 to 3 times a day to the business. So being able to grab the views, the number of content and engagements really quickly is absolutely imperative. And then you can also see content in a bit more detail for individual performance, as well as seeing any organic content that's come through that you may have missed in your feed or your algorithm as well. And we're on to our final lesson, and I've saved one of the biggest ones till last, which is how the hell do you actually find all these creators that will enable you to have a really successful Q4. So how do you identify creators who drive profit for your brand, and what key data or metrics do you use to find them? Me and many seasoned influence marketers will agree that a successful Q4 split will be between revenue and awareness. So 60 to 70% revenue for that baseline, and then that 40 to 30% awareness. So you can test new influencers and get the message out there as well. When you're casting for both this revenue and awareness part of the campaign, consider both the data and the story of the individual influencers' profiles as well, because the biggest mistake I see in the whole of influence marketing is overfitting. I see it time and time again, all the time. People trying to put influencers into this box I mentioned earlier, usually with specific data metrics. But it really is that balance between story and data. And when I say story, I mean people that kind of have their own narrative or visuals that your brand or campaign can slot right into. So avoid seeing them as the output for a vision that you already have in your head. See them as the starting point and how the brand can integrate into their existing content styles and tone of voice. If you try to mold an influencer into something they're not already, I can guarantee you that the content will flop. And I've seen this so many times, and it's frustrating to see because the answer is right there, just kind of following what the influencer does already. So a few things to ask yourself are, does their content, aesthetic match the brand? So whether you're going for something relatable, something aspirational, can they bring an authentic or unique perspective? So do they have a niche, a personal story, or kind of like a narrative and way of talking that you can fit within? Are they an organic fan of the brand? Have they posted before? Or, are they already a paid partner? Do they have their own community and strong sentiment as well? So contrary to popular belief, this doesn't equate to a high engagement rate percentage, more into kind of deep diving into their comments. So do they have people in their comments asking them questions? Are people taking their recommendations? Do they host their own community events? This is very prevalent in the wellness industry. Do people actually turn up to their run club that they host as well? Trying to find those like nuggets of true influence via sentiment in the comments as well. So you want to use data to support your decision rather than ruling it completely. What I see all the time is people having this data checklist and they're reducing a creator's ability to perform to this data checklist. Do they have this engagement rate, this audience, this gender split, this country split? But really you need to think of it as a holistic view. So do they fit the story first? And then it's time for the data. I mentioned engagements, but some additional things to look at beyond the obvious numericals is the age. So older demographics obviously often have a higher disposable income, but actually mums, in my experience, perform really well. I think that could be because they're taking on the recommendation of someone already for something for their child. They're taking on the recommendation for the safety of a car seat, so of course they're going to take on their recommendation for a skincare product. The country is shipping available to their top country, otherwise you're targeting literally a whole bunch of people who will never be able to convert anyway. Gender, does their split reflect the demographics of your product and target market? Again, this is very prevalent in kind of the fitness and wellness industry. Often females, despite promoting, female product, will have a very high male audience. So you just want to make sure it reflects what you're aiming to sell. And my favorite, which is growth rate, I have found literally some of the best creators ever, people that I've brought on as ambassadors for brands, that brands are genuinely still working with 3-4 years later after I've finished with the company. And it's because I've found them when they're smaller in their following, and I see that spike in growth rate and that they're going to continue to flourish. That because their speed of growth reflects their relevance, the relevance of them as a person, the relevance of the content, and also how good they are at getting onto the algorithm. However, as I said, blending data and story is your best bet, because my top driving revenue creator ever was actually an influencer with 1% engagement. Anyone in any influence marketing knows 3% is generally the average. So why the hell would you work with someone lower than the average, or, a fair bit lower, like 1%? However, this creator, she'd been using the brand for a very, very long time. She was a true organic brand fan, and she had this really unique perspective. She would review activewear in a way that was really comparative to the beauty industry. So she would go in depth about comparisons of the color, the fit, the stretch, the material. She would compare to old season colors to other brands, so that the audience were like really informed about that collection. And she'd do it more than anyone else in the space. So as I said, her engagement was low, and traditionally, like, my rule of thought was to be like, oh, I'm a bit wary there, but I kind of knew in my tuition that there'd be a really great fit. So what I did is I dove deeper into her data and her community to support my reasoning. So her comments show people requesting her for reviews, asking her opinions on this new release, saying that they bought these leggings because of her. And then I used her data, such as country and gender, to support my decision, like I said. And the results were absolutely amazing. She became the highest revenue driving influencer that I've actually ever worked with. Highest revenue driving influencer of the campaign, and driving over 6 figures. So in one weekend, she drove more than anyone else in the campaign, from someone that a lot of other people would have completely just crossed off because they were overfitting to this data checklist. And final section, what does maximizing Black Friday actually look like in 2025? Because we know influence marketing is always evolving and we're on this hamster wheel to know what to do best. And it's all about riding the wave. You're riding the wave through reactivation, using that amazing up-to-date reporting and your amazing internal process that you've put in place to get savvy during the Q4 period, not just in the planning phase. So you're reactivating creators, your best performing influencers throughout the Q4 period. And you can do this in a few ways. So the way I've done it most, and my favorite way, is through pre-planning additional deliverables into the contract. So you'll say, I want to work with you doing XYZ for Black Friday. And can we also do an additional 1 story frame on Cyber Monday? And this is good, especially during that Black Friday weekend. So you're booking in during those days. What you can also do is pre-agree a fee during the negotiation phase and reactivate ad hoc. So at the beginning, you say, can we agree that if we want to work with them before the end of the year, that a story frame will cost X? And then if they are performing well, you can then take that pre-agreed fee and activate, quite simply. Another really great tip is to send a really large amount of product that you predict will still be in stock. And this is something that we did a lot at Gymshark and served us really, really well during that reactivation phase, is because a lot of popular products would sell out at the beginning. And we didn't want to be scrambling with the shipping services that are already backlogged because of the amount of things that they need to send. We would just send a ton of products so that the influencer had extra things that they could use to post about organically. And finally is ensuring that you have that really clear and easy reporting system in place, like the Modash event tracking I showed you earlier, so that you can see everything in a really quick snapshot and you can say yes, no, maybe to reactivating people. And an additional tip just at the bottom here is to work really closely with your paid social teams to boost content from the creator channels as well. As an influence marketer, I'm sure you know that it's really difficult to show the true worth of a partnership. And I feel like half the battle is trying to show that worth to people internally to get more money and more budget. It's just the nature of the channel in similar ways to PR and social as well, because the customer journey is never set. However, what you can do is essentially take other people's, more simple reporting, like paid social, X equals Y, for your own advantage. So at Gymshark, again, we worked with a really big influencer, and through her own link, she drove 6 figures. This is different to the person I was talking about earlier, which was amazing. She kind of drove a profit on what we paid her originally, but we also got the usage right, and the paid social team put a decent spend behind her content. And not only did she drive an additional 6 figures through the paid social, she actually drove 7. So we then got to take those really great results for our own report. And it's just a win-win. It's just a really great extra justification into your influence marketing program and how to work with the marketing funnel in like a true 360 way. And that's it, my friends. Class is over. I hope you've learned something from all of my stressful Q4 periods. If you have any questions, please pop them into the comments. Simone will read them out and I will answer them.
Firstly, Chloe, we have had many incredible comments. I'm just going to put a few up now because there have been some truly wonderful engagements. So everyone really enjoyed your presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it, and especially the part about the to and from about getting analytics from the influencers, and then you asking. I mean, I was an influencer. I hated giving them because it's just a faff. And then I also hated chasing influencers to receive their analytics. And Modash just makes it so much more streamlined when it comes to getting that data. So
yeah,
very
exactly.
that. Okay, well, we've had many questions, so let's get straight into it. So we had a few of them, so keep asking. I will be going through all the questions and we'll try and get to all of them as quickly as possible. So we'll bring the first one up. Okay, curious to hear how all you handle usage rights. Do you add that as a separate fee, or is it possible to negotiate it as part of the base price?
So typically in terms of how the pricing kind of system works with talent managers is the content will be one fee and the usage will be another fee. And actually this is really beneficial to you because you might be thinking, oh, well, I'd like usage throughout the whole of Q4. So I would like, 3 months usage, but that usage fee might come back quite expensive. So you're going to say, oh, actually, do you know what? Let's just use it in our prime period of Black Friday and just get a week's usage. So then you can see the two fees separately. But what you can do is then combine that into, a bundle rate and negotiate a better deal. Generally in negotiations, the more deliverables you add, so whether that's 1 story frame to 3 story frames, a TikTok, and adding the usage, the more things you add onto that, the better rate you can get as well. So yeah, that's kind of just how the system of the fees work. If you have any additional questions about that, I'm happy to clarify.
Do you push back on those who want like a share of revenue? Because I have come across those before as well.
Do you mean in terms of commission?
Well, you got some that say, if you're going to use my content for 3 months, in addition to the fee for 3 months, we also want a revenue share of 10%.
Yeah, I think it's something to speak with generally as a bit of a wider function, because that can be a really great thing to have in your back pocket for a really big creator, someone that you really, really want to work with, that you think will be a great fit, and you need those things to like sweeten the deal.
Yeah.
However, it's not really standard practice in influence marketing. And that can actually really affect your budgets because that revenue, while it's really great for that creator because they might have a bit more like oomph behind them to put into that content or do some additional organic content, you don't know what that 10% is going to look like. So that can actually mess with your budgets a little bit. So I think it's something to have a bit more of a wider chat with your finance team about, with the person who gives you your budgets. I would say no, unless it's someone that you really want to work with.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. What techniques do you use to negotiate the budgets?
I love a bit of negotiation, I do. One thing I will say is don't accept the first fee. Talent managers know this. A talent manager does not give you a fee without knowing that that will be negotiated. If an influencer is self-managed, they might not be used to that process, so they might be a bit more apprehensive about a negotiation because they might see it as you not seeing their true worth. So just keep that in mind. I would generally say that any fee that you get, you can knock at least 20% off that, just in a negotiation rule. However, Black Friday and Q4 is a bit more expensive, so do keep that in mind as well. If you've worked with them before and their fee is bumped up, don't be surprised about that. But what I tend to do is, let's say they quoted £2,000 for something, and I have a budget of 1,500. I'll go back in at 1,250. Hoping that they'll come back in at 1,750, and then I'll be, can we meet in the middle at 1,500? And then you've got your deal.
It's a good tip. Okay, next question. How do we feel about exclusivity contracts with creators? Oh, firstly, as a creator, especially around Black Friday, Q4, a 24-hour thing is usually quite reasonable, but unless you've got the money up front, in my opinion, it's a bit difficult.
Exclusivity is extremely expensive.
Mhm.
And sometimes, I'm going to be honest, a bit of an unnecessary cost. It depends kind of what industry you're in. Like the beauty industry, for example, there's no point getting exclusivity because the nature of their content is to talk about a lot of other brands and review other brands. So it's a bit different. For Black Friday, the thing that can get really tricky is that a creator will book in a lot of content for that weekend. So your messaging just kind of gets a bit diluted. What you can do, which I believe someone's mentioned in the comments, is get a 24-hour exclusivity where they don't post the 12 hours before and the 12 hours after of any other brand. And to be honest, a creator shouldn't really be doing this anyway, but it does happen a lot in Black Friday, especially when content becomes late and things like that, and schedules have to be rejigged. But I'd always just have especially if there's a talent manager, just be transparent, because they will understand where you're coming from and that your messaging will get diluted. But yeah, if you are worried about that, 12 hours either side, but know that this will come with an additional cost.
Yeah. So if people are concerned about that, is it worth doing prep campaigns before Black Friday? So focus a lot of their messaging, plant the seed in the audience's mind, and then probably re-communicate a message during Black Friday.
Yeah, so prep campaigns are really good in my opinion for new audiences, and that's where I've done them a lot. As I mentioned earlier, it's really great to use links as well as codes, especially in this new audience space, because you could see someone, what I've had in the past at Gymshark, especially when we was targeting this more like lifestyle fashion creator, is the first 1 or 2 times we worked with them, there wouldn't be any revenue. There would just be a lot of traffic and sessions and clicks to site, because they're like, oh, what's this brand?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're going to purchase straight away. So prep campaigns are really great if you think of them as like a warm up. If they're kind of already in that niche, that type of area where your brand already sits, I don't think it's necessary. But yeah, if it's a new kind of area and you are hoping for revenue, then I would, even just like a couple story frames in the like month before would really help in that warm up.
I see a lot of giveaways. So a lot of brands launch giveaways in order to get the email sign-ups, and then they can communicate with that customer during Black Friday via email. So there are many different ways that you can touch point with your customers.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, next question. How do you report the results? Thank you, Regina.
So in terms of how I report the results, taking them from Modash, so the kind of numerical data, so your classic, your views, your impressions, the engagement rates, as well as the numbers from the sessions and the revenue. And then in terms of how I like physically report it, as I mentioned before, we had to do business updates multiple times a day. So that would usually just be a nice, concise snapshot of text, a few bullet points, nothing too overwhelming. But in terms of the actual report at the end of the campaign, so I'd usually wait a couple of weeks just to make sure you've got all those views and engagements in. And then I'd do it in any sort of kind of presentation format. A really good thing with reporting is learning to speak the language that the people higher up understand. So don't try to go in too much with this influencer jargon. You don't even need to go into the individual results. Keep it visual, keep the big numbers there, anything that like looks quite snazzy, and don't keep it too long. A good thing to look at is look at other marketing teams. How are the paid social team reporting? How are the organic social team reporting? Do people like that? Is it efficient? And going on with that as well, because if they already understand how those channels work, then reflect that language.
Yeah. Within Modash, you can actually take the tracker dashboard. You can set a time frame, and then you can download a spreadsheet version, and then you can filter out the columns. So if you need something, your bosses need to see something ASAP, you can actually get that data like that. So no more copying and pasting metrics in and waiting for the analysts to coming from creators is fantastic. And there is a quick question in the comments about I think tracking creators' other content. You can do that in the event mode, so you can set a criteria, and you can for example, you can use hashtags, and then you can pull in that information within the campaign. So let's just say someone forgot to tag you, or it just allows you to kind of see the creation that's going on out there. It's pretty remarkable. We will be sending resources on that after this webinar, so keep an eye out for your emails. Okay, we'll go on to the next question. Get one up. Thanks for the questions, guys. These are amazing. If a campaign doesn't hit the agreed results, what are some of the effective ways to provide perks or added value for the client without devaluing the creator's work? Very good question.
Yes. And I know this is something, especially from an agency point of view, where you really need to, showcase why they've hired you, essentially. So a really good thing to do is to really look into that sentiment that I mentioned. I absolutely love in any report doing a page of screenshots of comments, especially if you've got like your top performing content, or let's say a content has performed a little bit lower than you expected or compared to their usual. Go into those comments and you're like, okay, this didn't get the views that we wanted. However, look at these comments. There are other influencers with the blue check commenting. There are people asking where they got their trainers from, delving into kind of things beyond those numbers that really help as well. And then also what I like to do in those situations is also speak with organic social teams if you manage their social channel, or speak with the client themselves and be like, listen, we've spoken to the influencer and they're happy to give you a reduced rate for usage fees if you want to boost the content, or they know the content has performed a little bit lower, so they're happy to do an additional story frame or something like that as well. So trying to think ahead for solutions as well.
I agree with that. When I was working as a creator, it's very rare to happen, but in those circumstances, I, without doubt, offered maybe a story just to, keep that relationship. And then it's not a stopper. Usually they'd come back for another campaign later on. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. And also look at the content. Is it, did you try to fit them into a box a little bit? Was the brief or was the brief not brief enough? Was it too over prescriptive? Or did you maybe not use that exclusivity, and did they post something else? What can you take as actionable learnings that the client can really integrate into the next campaign as well?
Yeah, and in particular, YouTube content, sometimes you could post something and not do well in the first week, but come back to a year later, it could be on 100,000 views. There's so many videos on my channel that did that. So sometimes you just got to kind of weigh it up. But
and that's why I recommend reporting, kind of waiting as long as you can till the client is like knocking on your door, because let those results all come in. And also ask the influencer for their data as well, especially with stories, because they can see the actual link clicks that you can't see in a third party way.
Brilliant. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Thank you for your questions. And move on to the next one. So do you negotiate the results that you expect from the influencer?
No, I don't. And I've seen another question that's very similar about including something in the contract to handle underperformance. It is kind of like a tricky area. If they have a talent manager, even if you try and put something in the contract, they'll try and get that out. And, understandably, things can be out of everyone's control in why something underperforms. But what you can do in that negotiation phase, right at the beginning, from that outreach email, you can even get on a call with them and be like, hands up, this is what we want. Influencers and talent managers, they want transparency because they want to perform as well. They want another partnership down the line. So just say, we expect kind of like paid results from this. I've worked on revenue campaigns outside of Q4 as well, where we say, our expectation is revenue here. Does this creator have experience in that? And talent managers will be like, do you know what? No, but these are the creators that I work with do. And just kind of saying that up front. If you try say, we expect this, and this, and if you don't perform that, we're going to underpay you. That is the easiest way to get a red mark against your name. I would not recommend that at all. Influence marketing is a risk at the end of the day for everyone, and underperformance can be out of a lot of people's control.
Yeah, it's called minimum view guarantee. I had a few of those just slid into contracts without any pointers that it was going to be added in there. And that's an immediate red flag to a lot of influencers, especially if you've not been upfront about it. So if you are, I'd say it's a big concern for you. It's something to bring up immediately from the start. What works for me as well, if it's like a YouTube video and let's say the video doesn't get the number of views, to produce another YouTube video is a lot of time and can be money if you have an editor. So it's maybe just negotiating, like if it does fall below the number, maybe some stories, and a lot of creators will be okay with that. But
and keep it transparent throughout the conversation. Say what your expectations are when you're doing the brief, when you're approving the content. Just say, do you think this is going to give us the results that we mentioned? And then at the end, just say, listen, this is what we wanted. It kind of hasn't performed, as I'm sure you're aware. What can we do here? What are the learnings? And then that is where sometimes they'll be like, we'll give you an extra story, or let's boost the content, or let's do this next time.
Excellent. Okay, next question. What about from an agency side? If you're not happy with the content supplied, do you have a leg to stand on or to ask for a re-record?
You do indeed. And you can negotiate rounds of amends and re-records into the contract as well. And as an agency, I do what am I trying to say? I do think you should do this because sometimes it can come from the client side as well, and you guys need to protect yourself as an agency. So usually I would recommend 2 rounds of amends and then 1 reshoot if applicable. So then that would mean that you essentially get 3 versions. Often creators, especially if it's very minor things like a bit of text or the music, they are happy to go over that. But this is why in my top tips I recommended trying to get the content 7 to 10 days ahead of time to protect yourselves as well, because you don't want it to be Thursday and Black Friday is tomorrow and they need to reshoot the content and somehow still go live tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then have multiple people approve it. That's why you reduce the approval process as well.
I will say this though, I've had, in my experience in my career, I've had a couple of occasions where the brand has completely tried to change the brief and say we want a reshoot. Obviously you have to be reasonable, especially when if you want to add something else in, like usually that can be done in a text, but if it's something so drastically away from the brief, like let's say the creator completely did the wrong thing, then get that reshoot. But if it's something from your side, I think it's supposed to tread a bit carefully. Okay, next question. I'm loving these questions. I could go on forever with this conversation.
It's fun.
It's fun. Do you use any particular search platforms to find the influencers? Thank you, Claire.
Modash has some really good discovery tools, which is a really great way to find creators as well. So it has all your classic filters, and my favorite one, which is a tip I mentioned in the discovery, is the growth rate. So you can put in, I want a creator that has grown 100% in the past 3 months, someone that's doubled their following, and that's a really great way to find some cool creators as well. And then they also have this AI function where if you have a specific kind of like visual style of creator in mind, like someone that does really colorful makeup looks, the AI tool essentially analyzes the visuals of the content rather than the context of the content. So it will bring through creators that kind of match that description as well, which is really cool.
I say describe it, find it. You literally put in what you want to find and it will pop up. It's good. How far in advance do you vet and commission creators before Black Friday? Just
as any campaign ever, the sooner the better. It is September, so start now. You can kind of start strategizing and kind of getting the list honestly in July if you wanted to. what you want to aim for is outreaching and locking in the first couple of weeks of October, because those dates get booked up.
Yeah.
Black Friday especially, and as I mentioned, brands get exclusivity. So the more important part is when you outreach and lock in that deal. Even if you're not 100% you're going to use that influencer, still outreach anyway to get that conversation going, and so that they know, okay, I might have this partnership with Gymshark or Elemis, so I'll keep that in mind. But if you aren't 100%, just make sure, again, you're transparent about that, because I know this happens a lot where you need to outreach to a long list, but you're only going to work with a certain amount of people. Just say, you know, we're just gathering interest, just to set expectations.
Yeah. I've had brands reach out to me in June and July, like asking about Black Friday. So people do start really early.
Yeah.
Okay, next question, please. What do you do when influencers don't adhere to the deadlines and send content too close to the live date, leaving not enough time for amendments?
Oh, this is a tough one, and one I've experienced many times. Listen, no matter how much planning you try to do, no matter how much you put those deadlines in those emails, and you have a great internal process, influencers will be late. I've had people late. And, you know, sometimes this does ultimately impact kind of their revenue as well. But this is just, again, where you kind of put your hands up, and you hopefully they have a talent manager, and you have a kind of transparent conversation, and a good one to get on a call as well, because I've had this quite a few times, and we had it particularly with one creator on multiple occasions, and we just said, like, this isn't on. Like, we've said it multiple times. This has happened a few times. And we managed to find a solution where we got a reduced rate and some additional kind of story frames as well. But it's kind of just like inevitable. And what I would just do as well is just, you know, if you have, you know, someone from higher up or around you, you know, on your back as well, just as long as you are doing everything you can and you've got the receipts of the emails and everything that you've done, then kind of trust yourself, and it is what it is. This is, you know, influence marketing. Don't let it ruin your day if it's out of your control as well. That's very important to remember in Q4. Things will go wrong. Trust yourself that you've done your best and move on.
This is why I like your top tip about giving extra products, because if something like that happens, you can have some in the back pocket just in case. So I like that one. Okay, next question. We want to boost our affiliate program for Black Friday, but a 10% commission may not be motivating enough. As a small brand with limited budget, but products priced around 200 euros, what would you be more attractive incentive structure for affiliates?
This is a very detailed question. Thank you. I like it. It is difficult because some brands are upping commission genuinely to like 20-25% during peak periods. This is maybe where you could offer kind of a bit more of a flat fee per product. So, and this is where you can go into the financials a bit more, you know, what is the product cost, and what can you offer? It, you know, it might seem a little bit better. You've got a 200 euro product, 10% isn't enough at 20. If you say to them, okay, we'll give you 30 euros for every single product that you sell, then you're doing your math in your head pretty quickly, and then I've got a bit more motivation to sell as well. So maybe trying to think of like alternative routes as well. But Black Friday is a competitive time, so you know, if you can even temporarily reduce it just for one day, just for Black Friday itself, and then reduce it back down to 10% as well, sometimes it's worth that risk. But if I will say, if you do have a higher price point product, that warming up and prep period that me and Simone talked about earlier is really great, because a lot of influence marketing, affiliate driven conversions are impulse based. But with a higher price point product, well, then you're not really going to be that impulsive. It's going to be more considered. So you want to kind of know the brand, have a bit of education about the brand, and then okay, I'll purchase when I see a really good offer on Black Friday.
It's a really good question, that one, because any creator will tell you bombarded with affiliate emails, and those ones that stood out to me were the ones again offering higher. So I did an beauty advent calendar series. I did it every single year, and the ones that really stood out to me that would gift the product, obviously gift it to me, give me an exclusivity to be like, you'll be the first person to post on this, which means more engagement and a higher affiliate. And that worked for me because I used to get compensated through the affiliate and the exclusivity. So I think if you can offer someone something like an exclusivity, that can help tremendously.
Yeah, I've saw someone say that, which is a good tip, that I've seen brands do, especially in kind of programs, is offering rewards for kind of highest number of views, etc. And that can definitely work. The thing to keep in mind there is kind of talent managers, because that works really great for kind of affiliate programs and when you're dealing with creators directly. I know especially in the UK market, most influencers above 10k will have a manager, and essentially the manager only makes their money through the paid work, not even through commission. That's how they only make their 20%. And this is why it's really great to build relationships outside of the campaigns as well. Meet the creators in person, have events, put a face to the name, so that you can have that one-to-one relationship where things like commission and rewards and things like that can come through with a bit more impact, and you don't have a talent manager there as a barrier.
No, completely great. I think we've got time for a couple more questions or maybe one more. Let's get one up. But you're right there. It's a bit of a minefield of it all, but
yeah, it is.
Actually, do you know what? I think we'll go for this question, then we'll just go into a poll. From a brand's perspective, what is the best way to deal with late content, lack of communication from the creator's agent side?
Oh, again, something I've dealt with many times. At the beginning, what I really like to do is get people's mobile numbers. It's a last resource. No one wants to do it because who wants to get a text message about work? But people be late. So what is really great is, especially if there's a talent manager, create a group chat. Do it on WhatsApp, do it on iMessage, and then because also that will put a bit of a fire up a talent manager's body, because the creator can then see if they're not responding and if the brand is chasing, and it makes them look bad. So you've got to do what you got to do. So yeah, have an email for them. Try and get an email for other people in the company, just in case. There are times where I've had to email, I've messaged in the company and said, does anyone else know an email for blah, blah, blah? Or I will look on LinkedIn, find other people that work in the agency, guess the email because I need a response and I don't have their mobile number. So creating that group chat is really great, because that's also a really good way, if it is you just approving the content as well, it's a really easy way to quickly approve.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, I've got a final poll for everyone. I'm really curious. So after today's session, how do you feel about tackling Q4 influencer campaigns? Maybe your Q4 just leveled up. Maybe you've picked up some useful ideas from this webinar. Maybe you have clarity on what to avoid and do differently. Maybe the same as you started, and perhaps this is not applicable to you. So really interested. Oh, you've picked up some useful ideas. I'm so glad.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you, guys.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Chloe. Where can everyone find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, just as my name, Chloe Perkins. You will find more pink, more Hello Kitty memes, and LinkedIn posts about the creator economy and general trends and cultural shifts as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Let's carry on this conversation over on LinkedIn.
Yes.
It's all in, and we're happy to jump on that.
Send me a connection. I'm happy to answer questions in DMs. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you've all found it useful.
I thought this was a really fun session. Thank you so much.
I
didn't want to stop, but it was towards the end. But thank you so much, everyone, for attending. You will receive a webinar replay in your inbox, so you can rewatch it at any time. And we're also sending additional resources, so definitely keep an eye out for your email. Do let us know on LinkedIn which part of this webinar was your most useful or most favorite. And if you want to learn more about how to use Modash for end-to-end influencer marketing, visit modash.io, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Thank you so much, guys.